Welcome, sir. It's Hal Sparks Morning's Mega
Yeah.
Worldwide with our dear friend Philip Ittner, live from Kyiv in Ukraine. Um, Obviously, there's a lot rolling today. I guess we should probably start with he also has a show on every Sunday on the Edge. He's the host. Check it out. Get it wherever you get your podcasts, and also watch it on YouTube. The I guess the big thing is the drones in Poland and
Hmm.
the reaction to that right now. So if people don't know, this like in the last 24 hours, Russian drones flew into Polish territory and were shot down. And Poland at this point is writing it off as sort of a like we don't consider it an act of war because we don't think they're attacking us directly. Therefore, we don't. It doesn't trigger Article 5 yet. However,
Hmm.
it very well may if we find out they meant to do it and they're being so slapdash with their attacks on the western side of the country that they're overshooting their targets and going into other countries, and that's how stuff spills over and gets awful. And in the old days, that's how a lot of wars started. A flaming arrow flew over the wrong house and landed in the house behind it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think that, and from what I'm hearing from, or what's being stated in European, centers,
Hmm.
uh, if one or two drones flew into Polish airspace, that
Hmm.
would be one thing.
Right.
This was 19.
Yeah.
19 Russian drones flew into Polish airspace. At the
Yeah.
same time,
In seven
when they
hours
are
time, by the way, this
conducting,
isn't it not just to be clear to people, this isn't like since the war began or they reached some sort of tipping point. In a 7 hour period, 19 drones entered Polish airspace and
yeah,
flew over and into civilian areas and had to be shot down. They had to close down the fucking domestic flights in that part of the country.
yeah. So 19 drones is more than a coincidence,
Yeah.
and this was coordinated.
Hmm.
The question is, can it be considered an attack?
Hmm.
A violation of airspace for sure.
Hmm.
The Poles and the Germans are moving troops to the border. This all comes as Russia and Belarus, which borders Poland, are conducting military exercises that they regularly conduct.
Hmm.
Um, Called Western, they call them Western and then the year. So Zapad
Hmm.
2025
Right.
is what this operation was called. It's supposed to be an exercised operation, but also at the same time, in 2021, when they had these exercises, they were used as a cover for the northern advance towards Kiev during the beginning of the full scale invasion. So it's no joke. And the Poles are, of course, taking this very seriously. Will they call for Article 5 to be initiated? I don't think so. Probably not. But nevertheless, um, it's clearly a provocation by Moscow. This is clearly them testing like the response time of NATO aircraft, because both F-22s and F-35s were dispatched by
Hmm.
Poland, or by NATO forces inside Poland to respond to these drones. So there's a lot of data that is being collected by Russia as to NATO's response time. And so while it might not be a direct attack, it's definitely something that, Brussels and Warsaw and, all, certainly all European NATO members,
Hmm.
and I should think in certain sectors of North America, certainly the Canadians, but even within America, that there are those who are going, yeah, we really don't want to be letting the Russians test our response time
Right,
and
which is what it
our
reeks of. By the way, I would like to say that
yeah,
one of the things that that really is concerning to everybody about this is that it harkens back to like Russians build up at the Ukraine border and then backing off and then building up, and because if you do these things, the Finnish have dealt with this many times, which is they test the security in an area by like dumping migrants and seeing if they get through, like that kind of stuff, and then
yeah.
they know
Well, yeah.
where the
I
weak
mean,
spots are.
they do this constantly. They do this constantly in the North Sea. They do this constantly in the Arctic and along the northern Atlantic with submarines. They in the North Sea and in Alaska, they will probe into NATO. Either
Hmm.
their naval borders or their
Hmm.
aerial
Right.
borders, and it's all meant for them to collect data so that they know, well, how long, once we violate their airspace, once we violate their sovereign waters, how long does it take for them to respond? And particularly in submarine warfare, how do they respond? And so how can we maneuver in waters with Atlantic, with NATO submarines, and kind of do this, like, how good are they at detecting us? How
Hmm.
good are they at proposing a threat to our incursion and that
Hmm.
kind of stuff? And now we're seeing it with drones. And the Poles in particular are not stupid about this. Um, NATO in general is not stupid about this, but the Poles in particular are not stupid about this. They're like, if they are probing with drones, that means that they are looking to see how quickly they could get aggressive offensive drones
Right.
into our airspace, get to strategic locations where they could strike at border positions along Poland. So they're not taking this lightly.
Yeah.
But again, do I think that Poland is going to call on Article 5? No, not over this. Not over
Hmm.
this. It's pushing it. It's pushing it. But it's initiating. Article 5 has only been initiated once after 9/11.
Hmm.
So it would have to be significantly more aggressive, I think, um, for the Poles to say, hey, as a NATO member, we are calling on our other NATO, fellow NATO member states to initiate the Article 5
Right.
attack on one is an attack on all sort of thing. Um, but it's a provocation. For
Yeah. I
sure,
mean,
it's a
I would argue that
provocation.
it's a test on one is a test on all. And that's what's really happening here is that they are seeing how not just the Polish will respond, but also how NATO will respond. And I don't think they're going to like, by the way, what they find, because NATO has been like there were calls flying everywhere. They were responding to this without overreacting. They were definitely on guard against this and treating it at least, in statements and in material response amongst each other, as far as like scrambling jets and stuff like that, as if it's a real threat to kind of warn Russia back that they're not just
Yeah.
going to take this. So
And it
and
was
that's
multinational as well. I mean, it
yes.
was there were, I think there were Czech
Mm-hmm.
F-22s. They may have been the F-35. So
F
regardless,
35s,
they
yeah.
were
The Dutch did it, and
they
then
were.
the Slovak president,
I think,
the
was
yeah,
it the
or,
Dutch
right.
or I thought the Czechs were in there somewhere.
Yeah, they might
I
as
thought
well
the
have been too,
Czechs
or they
put
very well
put
may have
put
been
stuff
too.
in the air.
Yeah,
But the important thing is that they launched from Polish bases, and the fact that the response has been to send German units down to the Belarusian Polish border is showing solidarity, certainly within the European NATO alliance. So, we'll see if we'll see if Moscow takes this seriously. Who knows? There's a lot of saber rattling going on right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the Russians are pushing the limits, and they're seeing what structure exists in NATO right now, with Trump being. Yeah, I mean, Trump tweeted. He said, "Here we go,"
Right.
which, I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
such a childish response
Yeah.
to this activity that it's like, well, I mean, how can you take that seriously? So
Well, yeah, and that's part of the
I don't think
problem is
I
that,
don't think our
yeah,
European, yeah,
right. You have to because it's the U.S., but you also have to go. Is it okay? What's increasingly becoming true about Trump is that on the one hand, he is signaling to his base and basically running a trolling administration on behalf of maggots. So that, when he posts shit about invading Chicago and helicopters flying over the city as it burns, is obviously horseshit. And he gets away with the fact that it's obviously horseshit where people don't hold him to the standard. But there's an element of, if you don't pay attention to it, the president has the ability to do that stuff. So you do have to take it seriously to some degree. But is he posting these things like he posted online about this for his base? Like, here we go. These fuckers are at it again, right? Mixed with, the government's response and the Congress's response and the money that's going there is all happening in the same way, and we will live up to our Article 5 responsibilities no matter what Trump says, because the violation of it would be so cut and dry. Every other country would jump in, and the United States go, okay, that's the line we've been looking for. And even if Trump slow walks it, we're still supplying arms and all kinds of other shit. We wouldn't scramble jets because we're all the way over here, but we would allow our forces in Germany, let's say, to join in the posturing, because there's just no way the folks around him allow that. Don't allow that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if he hits Poland, if Putin hits Poland, it's on.
Yeah.
It's 100%. I mean,
Yep.
it's not, and our European allies would go at it with or without us. I think. I'm very confident in saying that. Attacking Poland would be. I mean, that's it. That's what started. That's one of the starting stages of
Fucking World War
the Second
II.
World War.
You're right.
Yeah, was sovereignty of Poland.
Yeah.
If they went for, say, the Baltics, if they went for Estonia or Latvia or Lithuania, I don't. A lot of people have been critical about that and said that, like, Trump would not risk going to war over some sort of small Baltic state, because selling that to the American people is going to be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think, contrary to that concept, which again I am, as an American, but as an expatriated American, I think that's a myopic look at what America would do if the rest of Europe went, if there was an attack on Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania, Europe would go to war with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would we do? We'd just go like, oh, those Europeans, they're crazy. We just have to stay out of it. Well, that's going to be a hard sell, I think, because we went through that in the last century. And also, in addition to that, this is after 3 years of war in Ukraine. So Russia has proven itself to be an aggressor and a belligerent. And if our NATO allies, if Russia were to attack a Baltic state, our NATO allies in Europe would, any one of those NATO nation states that said Article 5, it would be France, Germany, Britain, all the the Scandinavian states are now all part of NATO. And then where does that leave us?
Mm-hmm.
Do we pull the isolationist oh, whatever's happening over there on the other side of the Atlantic, it doesn't really matter to us. I don't think that sells in a post 20th century Second World War scenario.
Mhm.
You Trump, yes, could ignore Estonia, but if everybody else in NATO responds to an Article 5 request from Estonia, and the entire continent is now suddenly at war with Russia,
Yeah.
do we really just sit it out? Do we just
Right.
go,
Well, and the
that's
other thing
their
is,
problem?
well, the other thing too is that what responses does Russia ultimately have? That's why the fear of the of nuclear outbreak comes not because of the strength of Russia, but because of the weakness of Russia compared to
Mm,
their goals. Because the worry amongst people, you have to look at what people say and what they're actively not saying, or the inverse of what they're telling you, to make sure that it checks against reality. And one of the reasons when people are like, Russia is so strong and this could turn into nuclear war, well, if they're that strong, they never would have to. The United States can engage in multiple wars in multiple countries without ever having to even threaten nuclear strikes. I mean, you think of like
yeah.
Iraq, Afghanistan, the South China Seas,
Vietnam.
like Vietnam, all these kind of areas where we were like running multiple
I mean, hell,
situations. Right,
Truman pulled McCarthy out of Korea because he wanted to use a nuke.
right. Yes. And
Yeah,
so if you
but
have that strength, you don't
the
need to
thing,
do it.
yeah,
And
the
when they're
thing,
saying that Russia's going to
right.
nuke everybody, it's because they're admitting that Russia does not have the conventional capacity to engage in war on the level that of their what is it? Their mouth wrote checks their ass can't cash, as we say in the South.
Yeah,
Right? That's what happened with Russia, and
yeah,
that's where they are right now.
yeah. And the only, I mean, using a tactical nuke for the Russians, say along the front line
Mm-hmm.
in Ukraine, uh, is not going to give them a great advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So what that is going to do is cause a response from the West. You use a nuke, a tactical or strategic. You you
You're
ring a
done.
bell that cannot be unrung.
Yeah, you're done.
And so Russia has two alternatives when it comes to the use of nuclear weapons. Either a massive exchange of strategic nukes, which means nuking European capitals, potentially trying to use ICBMs to attack continental U.S. I mean, it either has to be full scale or it has to be a tactical nuke either used on the front lines or to nuke Kiev. And they're not going to nuke Kiev.
Mm-hmm.
They can't nuke.
Right.
Putin cannot nuke Kiev.
Right.
Um, Putin has to take Kiev
Right.
because it's the birthplace of the identity of
Yeah.
Kevin Roos. So it would be like the Iranians trying to fight a Shia Sunni war by
By
nuking the
nuking
Kaaba
Mecca. Right.
or
Nuking, yeah,
Mecca or
Mecca. Right.
Medina,
Right.
right? And that would be, you know, Putin nukes Kiev, and he is not the guy that forced Ukraine into submission. He is the guy that
Who destroyed
destroyed the
Russian
birthplace
history. Right. Yep. So
and the birthplace and
right.
the
So
origin story of Russia.
there's two material reasons
So
why
you can't.
why it isn't going to happen, and why they can blather about it on and on, is because the guard posts on them are both externally and internally enforced. And I think that's it. And I would
Mm-hmm.
also argue that on a tactical level, nuking anywhere else, the biggest guardrail they have is not Trump's response. By God, it might be the final like thumb on the scale of total economic isolation from the European standpoint, but it's ultimately China that's keeping them from launching that tactical nuke, because that will go
Mm-hmm.
away instantly, because China needs the rest of the world more than they need Russia. There is not enough money to be had. If they bought Russia at wholesale prices and sold it for retail, it still wouldn't gain them a quarter's worth of revenue from the rest of the world. And if they aligned themselves with Russia during a tactical nuclear strike, or after one, that's what would happen. The U.S. would go, okay, anybody on Russia's team right now, fuck you. and so would every other functional, especially a
Well, and for
road.
India,
Yeah.
for India, the other great, the thing that is keeping Moscow solvent,
Hmm.
if they were to nuke, if Russia were to use a tactical nuke somewhere along the front lines, which, by the way, also needs to be said, militarily would make absolutely no sense.
Right.
But if they were to do that, then India would go, what the hell are you doing? Because we have an open conflict with Pakistan over Kashmir.
Right.
What if the Pakistanis suddenly decide to nuke
Hmm.
Kashmir, or our forces in the Himalayas,
Hmm.
who guard against kind of Kashmiri and Chinese incursions? Look, Delhi would go nuts.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's why
we talk about
there
China
is
and Taiwan, but
right.
you know, in India and Pakistan are both nuclear powers, and if suddenly you start
Taiwan.
chucking around,
Yeah. For those that don't know, by the way, Taiwan has introduced one of the things they've taken away from the Ukraine war is sea drones. So Taiwan now has enough sea drones to sink 40 of the biggest ships that China has that they could bring to the area. Like if China tried to do a forced landing quickly, like a blitz attack, they would be struck by just a barrage of sea drones. So much everybody, it
yeah,
used to be missiles. They're like, okay, they fire missiles and it looks like a war, and the rest of the world would be on China's side. But the reality is, these ships would just start sinking in the water, and the rest of the world wouldn't even, you'd get some fucking online videos, and that'd be it. They would just disappear, and that's the shift that's happened in Taiwan. Insofar as like what the version of a tactical nuke, I would argue that the unrest in France and in Nepal right now is much more indicative of the underhanded weapon that Russia is using everywhere, which is foment violent dissociative behavior amongst any either real and genuine movement to undermine it, the same way they did with like anti-Trump or pro-Trump protests. You flood people in and fulfill their like feed people into the mix that will turn it into violence, and you foment as much of that as you possibly can, and that's happening in Nepal and France right now. The dude who started Telegram, where by the way servers are still in Russia, is saying that Telegram is behind all the unrest in France right now, is the driving force. They're dragging in Nepal right now. They're dragging like politicians and people that work there, like anybody they view as the enemy, out into the street and stripping them naked and beating the shit out of them, if not killing them, right now. And a lot of that has to do with Russia can't tactically nuke anything. So what's their fallback weapon? Undermine society. Make the society eat itself from within, not address its problems, find a solution, some of which can be murky work that takes time, most of it incremental and very unsatisfying if you have a bloodlust. Russia just flicks those dominoes everywhere they can to try and cause as much violence as they can to distract everybody, so that if they did decide to hit a NATO country, they do it by floating some drones, our bad, into Poland, and then actively, like you're saying, attack the lesser countries in the NATO alliance to call people's bluff. So that, because again, this is the Ruska Mir. This is the Russian world. Anywhere a Russian soldier has his foot, that's Russian territory, even if he's there for peaceful reasons. Even if it's just like they treat that like anybody in Putin's detail when he came to Alaska, as far as they were concerned, everywhere a Russian soldier was standing, like the 6 foot diameter around their physical person, is Russian territory, according to them. And if they decide to seize
yeah,
more while they're there, take up arms and start shooting the people around the president, that would be because, somebody stepped on Russian territory. They're that empirical.
yeah.
I just don't
And
people
I don't
don't
think
people
they have.
grasp that.
Yeah, I don't think they have any actual intention of, at least not in the immediate term, and certainly, because they're going to have to recover after this disastrous war with Ukraine. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they really do actually have any intention of rolling tanks into France or Germany or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
What they want is to intimidate the
Mm-hmm.
rest of Europe, to
Right.
stand on the precipice of Europe and say, and also at the same time, use their hybrid warfare techniques to undermine societies with politics and with markets and with corruption. I mean, you walk down the streets of Knightsbridge
Mm-hmm.
in London, go down certain areas in Paris or Berlin, and you're going to hear a lot of Russian
Mm-hmm.
because the rich Russians, one of the first things they do is bring their corruption and their economic power, because the elite are disproportionately more
Mm-hmm.
powerful than the rest of the European than the rest of the Russian population, so they can buy apartments in the swankiest parts of, the south of France, or in Lake Como in Italy, and by doing so, they can exert um, corruption and financial influence that can influence politics, with the backup of, hey, we just won the war with Ukraine.
Right.
We're right on your borders. We can, they don't have to actually roll the tanks. The
Mm-hmm.
threat of being able to do so is enough to influence European politics, body politic. And it's not limited to Europe. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're inside America.
Right.
They are all up and down our body politic.
Mm-hmm.
They're in actual, political parties. They are in NGOs. They are in,
That
all
they are
kinds of
they drive. They're,
financial
by the way,
institutions.
they're driving a. I would argue they're driving a section of MAGA in terms of the anti-Ukraine stuff by
Yeah,
flooding money to them through things like tenant media and that kind of stuff, and through more
yeah.
like subverted direct means. And with that comes, okay, you and I both share this idea that Ukraine deserves to lose and all that kind of stuff. You're on board with that, so I'm just going to give you some money for agreeing with me. By the way, I also think this, and I don't know if you have a hard opinion about it, but you should share that opinion as well. And so there's a bunch of other areas where they can foment discord. Because let me tell you something, the Russians don't give a rat fuck about Palestinians
Oh,
versus Israelis. Nothing. They just like the fight. And they've been fomenting both sides of it for ages.
mm-hmm.
You can track the
Yeah,
PLO to the Kremlin, but you can also track Likud members to the Kremlin. This, knowing that America gives a shit about Israel, there's so much about like what they're talking about like Pat Buchanan saying that the Congress is Israel occupied territory and blah 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 is so fucking short-sighted. Because on the one hand, yes, does that the fighting about that lobby and the worry about it, create more trouble than it may be worth in people's opinions? Of course. But beyond that, Russia knew that's a weak hinge point. That's a point where America can't or won't, because of largely evangelicals, not even the Jewish population in the United States, but evangelicals like the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, who think that we have to protect Israel not because it's a country and it deserves to exist and all that kind of stuff, but so that the Jews can all move back there, so when Jesus comes back, he can kill them all like it says in the Bible. That's what they
yeah,
really believe. There are a bunch of evangelicals who were caught trying to smuggle a nuke into Israel because they were going to blow up the Temple Mount to call Jesus's bluff. They thought if they could blow it up, that would fulfill one of the moments in the Bible, so that Jesus would have to come back. Like he'd get up out of his easy chair and go, "Okay, I guess you're serious now." It's so fucking crazy, and Russia knows
yeah,
this. And they know that, and what you do is you go after the soft evangelicals who will always think of Israel as kind of Jesus's birthplace. You got them. That hook is in their fucking cheek forever. And then there's a chunk of them who can't wait for Jesus to come and help them shuffle off this mortal coil so they can live naked on a fucking cloud playing a harp with everybody else who's also naked in their kind of pervy, kinkish view of what Christianity is. And the Russians know this. That's why they pretend to be a Christian country. That's what the fucking bullshit orthodoxy of the of the Russian Orthodox Church is. It's just a way to manipulate evangelicals into biting in this situation. The problem they have is overspill. Russia has started all these fucking things because they know it distracts, they know it helps them, but they have no way to get the toothpaste back in the fucking tube.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, and countering this, tenant media and kind of this hybrid information war is all the reason why we have our guest on this week at On the Edge, who is going to be Luke Beasley,
Okay.
who was over here.
He was over there, yeah.
He was over here for about a week and a half, and he went back to the States. And I wanted to wait for him to actually go back to the States. We had him in the studio because he spoke with another friend of the show, Kaylin Robertson, who kind of was his host here in Ukraine. And I could have had the option of speaking to him while he was here in the studio with Kaylin, but I wanted to actually wait until he got back to Austin, Texas. And so I interviewed him on Monday, and we're editing that together. But, we need more people like Luke with an audience of, 1.4, 1.5 million, whatever he's got on his YouTube channel, to come over here and combat against these tenant media, these guys who will never come here.
Right.
They'll
Tim Pools of the world,
Tim Pools of the world, Benny Johnsons of the world,
right?
What's the idiot? The really offensive one. None of these jackasses are ever going to come over here and actually physically. But if you have somebody who is actually working earnestly, who is willing to come over here, and I'm all for amplifying. I mean, not that I am. My channel is minuscule compared to Luke's, but we have him on this week to talk about this visit that he had here in Ukraine. And one of the major topics we talk about is the hybrid information war, where the lies that have been told about Ukrainians and their intent in this war, and that they're somehow being manipulated, that they are a proxy for the West, and that the West is going to fight to the last Ukrainian. Well, Luke got a chance to come over here, go to the front lines, talk to soldiers who are fighting and dying every single day. And they said, no, I mean, this gives me purpose. I know why I'm fighting.
Yeah.
And then he comes back to the Capitol on a day of one of the worst attacks that Russia has conducted on the Capitol, and he's there on hand to see it. So he goes back to the States, and I would only wish that more people would do that, because there is an information war going on, and it is the guys who benefit from Russia's support. They don't have to come to Ukraine. In fact, they don't want to come to Ukraine. That, because if you actually spent time here, you would see the earnestness of what the Ukrainians want, that they do not want to be colonized by Moscow anymore, that they want their independent country, they want their sovereignty. And the narrative that Moscow is putting out, that's being absorbed by certain sectors, in particular, the right, but there's some on the far left as well, is being obviously manipulated by the GRU. I mean, even this terrible event that happened in North Carolina with this young Ukrainian woman, I mean, even that is being manipulated in the information sphere to kind of find a way to make it an American political argument about Ukrainian, kind of the Ukrainian diaspora and that kind of stuff. And it's all just meant to manipulate public opinion. And so the more people that we can get over here, and, getting more eyes on here, because it's expensive. Look, I am critical of the industry in which I used to work. But while I am critical of it, I understand in many ways. I don't agree with it, but I do understand, having seen how the sausage is made,
Yeah.
why it is difficult to get teams on the ground here
Yeah.
for these large corporations, because they have to think about insurance, and they have to think about, if some, God forbid, somebody dies, like my dear friend Pierre, who was
Mm-hmm.
killed here, who now, and his producer who was killed here, the insurance is going to have to be paid out, and that would be higher costs for the corporations. So the priority for these corporations is sadly still economic. Doesn't forgive it, but I do understand it, seeing how the sausage is made. But what we need to do is get more people coming over here, um, who are not constrained by these corporate interests, because there's always, even with, I mean, look at ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, they all have they have a umbrella corporate interest that is going to say, God, but if we send these guys over here, it's aside from the fact that even if they don't get hurt or injured or God forbid killed,
Yeah.
it's still going to mean that we need armored vehicles, we need security detail, we need intelligence operators to say where it's safe to go to and where it's not safe to go to. So there's a bottom line for these guys. I don't agree with it. I think that the role of the fourth estate should supersede economic interests,
Mm-hmm.
but that is where we are, and that needs to be changed, in my opinion, but it's not where we are right now. So we need guys coming over here like Luke. And so
Yeah.
hopefully this Sunday's edition of the show will, get more eyes on Ukraine, because Luke has that profile. And I know that both Luke and Kalen, and there are several others over here, filmmakers, documentarians, of course, my dear friend Zarina, who is down in Kherson, documenting the human safari.
Yep.
But it lies to the individuals. And if it's going to lie to the individuals who are trying to look and make a living for themselves, to make this legitimate for them, that they're going to have large audiences. And so let's get more eyes on. And that's what we're hoping to do this Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. In looking for, like, I do think, okay, one of the things that was brought up, by the way, in the chat and stuff, and I was going to mention it to it, and I appreciate Andre and them bringing up an article with it, but that NATO allies have held they've
Yes.
invoked Article 4, which is not like DEFCON 4 where 3 is worse and 2 is worse or whatever, but it's the other direction. And Article 4 is before Article 5 usually happens. If there's a question about it, Article 4 is let's all get together and sit down about this. And it's an active choice, and the invocation of it is, has legal ramifications, has responsibilities by all the parties, including the United States, who I guarantee were consulted in this circumstance as well, and more than likely, Dan Kane and those guys were speaking in response to this, and all of our regular posturing happened no matter what Trump is telling people. At this point, the Epstein stuff is getting so bad. I have a feeling like he might go along with more of this than he normally would, just to draw attention away from the fact that he drew that titty picture for Epstein's birthday book, and he's calling it a dead issue now, which is not particularly the best choice of words when everybody thinks you had the dude murdered. Anyways, the NATO allies have invoked Article 4, and they have been meeting specifically about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, NATO is here's one of the most frustrating things about, when it comes to the Trump administration and its outlook on the on NATO as itself. It is this massive. I mean, like, for God's sakes, Trump used to talk about NATO in terms of like it being a protection racket.
Yeah, yeah.
Which just totally exposed his ignorance about what that alliance actually is.
Like, okay. So I have my theory about his root of a lot of these things. Like, we now know, for example, that Trump thinks that asylum seekers coming to the United States were in mental asylums. Like, he doesn't understand the dual use of the word asylum because he's fucking dumb. We also now know that he thinks transhumanism is transgender for everybody. Never mind the fact that Peter Thiel, who's got his hand so far up J.D. Vance's ass that isn't J.D. Vance's hair, that's Thiel's knuckles, is all in on transhumanism, so much so that he's been quoted saying the human race, and when he was asked if the human race should survive, he, let's just say, hedged. It took him a while to get to maybe. That Trump also thinks that NATO pays the United States their dues, like dues to be in a club that America started. Like, he thinks of it like Mar-a-Lago, and that's fucking dumb. However, there may have been impetus in the people around him who wanted NATO to survive to allow him to continue thinking that, so that he thinks that if they invest more in NATO, that money's coming to the United States, so he won't pull out of NATO because he thinks that money is coming here. Now, part of it is coming here because they're buying U.S. arms, but they're buying arms from a lot of different places. And so that has cemented, in spite of Trump wanting in his first term to shut NATO down, to like thinking it's obsolete, following Putin's line, not wanting to be a part of it, to now he's all in on the existence of NATO because he thinks it's this unique club that everybody pays us dues to be in. For real. So I think people around him know his manipulation points, and that they use that
maybe so
misconception
and I would
to
hope so.
keep us in NATO.
I would hope so. And I would also hope that like that the same kind of people were like saying, hey boss, we can make a lot of money if the Europeans buy our stuff. That whole thing has been floated a lot. But I wanted to get back to the point of Article 4 and his misunderstanding of what NATO is. And actually, I think this goes beyond NATO, and I think it goes beyond Article 4, and I think it goes beyond.
Yeah, he thinks America is the mob boss on the corner that says it'd be a shame if somebody set fire to your pizza shop.
Well, right. But also it reveals a lack of understanding of how international diplomacy works. Okay? You don't just go into a conference room with other nation states and say, do this. We want you, this is our policy, do this. You might do that in front of the cameras. But when you're in a relationship with other nation states, and when you're talking at a level of which we're talking with international relations, it isn't a matter of like, I walk into a room, I tell you what to do, this is my position, and then we wrangle. There are strata and laws and regulations and policies and agreements that have existed for decades, that have been pre-signed, re-signed, reformed, signed again, negotiated again. And these guys, people who work in statecraft, this isn't a corporate takeover. This isn't some sort of thing where you sit down in a boardroom and say, this is our position, this is your position, let's find some common ground, or I'm going to bully you into whatever. That's not how it works.
Right.
This is statecraft. Statecraft is not corporate negotiations. Statecraft is based on rules and agreements and things that have existed for decades, many decades, sometimes centuries. I mean, you go back to the Treaty of the Treaty of Westphalia, I think it is. Yes, the Treaty of Westphalia. Yep. I mean, that's the 16th century, for God's sakes. And there's still regulations that exist between nations that go back to those negotiated peace agreements. And it's not the same, and he doesn't understand that, and he has decimated the State Department. So we don't have experts who can walk into a room with the minister of France, the foreign minister of France, and the Secretary of State, and the undersecretary of whatever, all these different strata of protocol and rules and things that have existed for a very long time,
Right.
and work through that framework. He walks into a thing going, I got my lawyer, I got my well-paid lawyers on my team. We're going to renegotiate a deal where I'm going to get better percentage benefits from the mine that we mutually, signed an agreement with, 2 decades ago.
Right.
That's not how statecraft works, and he's
Right.
too obtuse, and he is not, and he has decimated those within our body politic. I argue at the benefit of the Kremlin and at the behest of the Kremlin,
Right.
to be unable to actually sit down with these people and go, we signed an agreement in 1962 in which you said you would do this if X happened. And X has happened and you are not. And I'm not referring just to the Budapest Agreement. I'm talking
Right.
about decades and years of statecraft. And he's too fucking stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And he has decimated our diplomatic corps. Even within the Pentagon, guys, there are military guys who get this 100%. I know tons and tons of them.
Yeah.
Guys, guys who are like lieutenant colonels and above. These
Mhm.
guys know how to sit down in rooms with other military leaders and go, we signed an agreement.
Right.
You would give us your 7th Corps if we needed to shore up our flank along the southeast position with Europe and our the forces that we have deployed in Greece. If we move our Greek positions, you promise that you would move stuff down from, Dresden,
Mhm.
to take up position in Romania. These guys know what all of this means. Trump and his administration and the damage that he has done to our experts who used to be really good at talking to their opposite numbers about this, he has absolutely decimated them. And he's decimated them for a purposeful reason. I think it's because of the Kremlin, but I also think it's because of just rank incompetency and a serious lack of understanding of how the world works.
Mhm.
And so we're going to be paying for this for decades, long after he's out of office. And it's really, really bad. And that's in so many ways why we are where we are, and why Putin thinks he can send drones into Poland and ultimately get away with it. And I've seen the critics. I know that there are those who are out there saying that Europe and the European NATO powers will yet again be like, oh my God, we don't want nukes. And without the Americans, we can't dare do anything. I think that is increasingly becoming something that might very well change, because I
Yeah.
think the Europeans are well awakening to the fact that they're going to have to be the ones that do this. And so be it. But sadly, it means the transatlantic alliance is going to be seriously hindered. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think we are better when we are together. Western liberal democracies
Yep.
should stand together against
Which is why Russia
autocracies
doesn't
like
want it, which is why
Iran
Trump
or
doesn't, again, Trump
exactly.
is following direct orders from, because that beyond even, being a rock solid opinion from you, that is an obvious reality. That is an obvious truth,
Mhm.
that it is much better if democracies stand together and are respectful of each other's differences while they work together to kind of, anything they see as an issue they can all contribute to, and world hunger, disease eradication, those kind of things, all the stuff that you would work together if you actually gave a shit. But Putin and I would argue others around him, Xi Jinping, the Ayatollahs in Iran, certainly Kim Jong Un, if he fucking matters in this conversation, are against that, and so they have active groups both online and in the financial sector, hackers, other groups, just constantly trying to break this shit apart. And Trump is probably the singular most valuable asset that any of these groups have managed to get. Russia got the big win in that they have Trump over here just constantly throwing fucking monkey wrenches in everything decent and good about like Western civilization, while the very people that are protecting him claim that they are, quote, Western chauvinists. It's stunning. Like the cognitive dissonance necessary to buy into the idea of Trump being America first, when all he thinks of America is just his first bargaining chip. America is his first, if I got to tear something down, that'll be the first thing I go to, is our standards, our legal standards, our ethical standards, and the constitutional protections that people express. Again, you can't destroy those things and say you saved America. You didn't. You just turned it into something else. The way, the Soviets and everybody would win is if we start denying our Constitution even when it hurts. That's how they win. They go, well, we just, your system doesn't work. And then we go, yes, it does. And we round people up and kill them. Like, then that's proof that it doesn't work.
Yep.
That's us using their system. That's why you don't do it. It's the only way you save your system. And you don't have to, it's not even asking that you go down with the ship on it or something like that. He's just doing it out of laziness. Because the system does work.
Yeah. And America first is not America alone.
Right.
We are better with allies.
Mm-hmm.
And Russia knows that exactly. So, America first is almost synonymous with, the Kremlin at the reins, because they're, it's divide and conquer. It always has been with them. And so, it's just, it's disastrous for America. Europe is reforming itself, and maybe that's a good thing, because there were some legitimate criticisms about how Europe was dealing with its own defense, because they thought that they could, live off of their fixer with petrochemicals and fossil fuels coming from Russia, and they've woken up to the fact that they need to dry out and go to rehab, and they're doing that. But what that means for the transatlantic alliance, I literally don't know, and I don't think anybody does, frankly. Maybe somebody who's much smarter than me does, but I don't know how we get back to a place where we regain trust with our transatlantic allies, and that plays right into the Kremlin's hands.
Yeah, I gotta tell you,
we have one ace up the sleeve. The one ace up the sleeve we have is that Ukraine is kicking their ass.
Yes,
and Ukraine is they are breaking themselves on the anvil that is Ukraine, and the line in the sand is here, and the Europeans are well aware of it now.
Right.
And if they have to buy weapons from America in order to hold that ground, that line in the sand, and let Moscow break itself on that line in the sand, then that will be our saving grace. Yeah. We should be so thankful to the Ukrainians that in a decade, in 2 decades, we will look back on this conflict and we will go, thank God that Ukraine stood strong.
Well, I
seriously.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think, by the way, we would have looked that way at Georgia had they had the strength and the support to fight back when it happened to them. Or even in our pluralistic society, poor little Muslims in Chechnya who were, bulldozed the same way. It was, in many ways, Ukraine is like 3rd times the charm, in terms of us finally catching up to what the Russian imperial system is about. And
it was the first president of Ukraine, Joker Dudayev, when he broke away from the Russian Federation, who said that this will all be decided in Ukraine.
Yeah.
He said that in like 1993.
Yeah, exactly. And this is fucking so frustrating when people talk about we have to watch out for American imperialism. We have to talk about American imperialism. Okay, first of all, most of the time when people are saying this now, they're talking about American, quote, industrial imperialism, like Starbucks taking over the coffee industry in fucking India or something like that, which is wholly different than what the Wagner Group has been doing to African pregnant women, slitting their babies open and fomenting their bellies open and taking the babies out, fomenting a civil war so they can sneak truckloads of fucking gold out the door. Like, it's just isn't on parity, and it's out in the open. U.S. quote, even the people who are like American imperialists who talk about like we should own the Middle East or some shit like that, are laughed at even amongst the right wing over here. They're seen as like PNAC is now stiff armed by almost everybody. Right? Like that's an amazing part of that's actual United States. Again, Japan still speaks Japanese. You can speak English in Germany, but that's because they chose it. You can also speak fucking French. Like none of the countries in the last 200 years that the U.S. has invaded or been a part of has been forced to subvert their culture, with the exception of maybe letting girls go to school in Afghanistan for a period of time. But when the Russians go someplace, they either steal everything out from under the people that are there or actively seek to rape the populace out of existence. And they don't, it's not even like they tiptoe around it like, the CIA secretly wants to...
They're proud of it.
They're proud of it. That's what Ruskimir means. The spacecraft, the fucking space station is called the Mir. It's the purposes, it's all part of the empirical form. It's I don't know if this comes from just kind of a generalized historical ignorance, but goddamn, like this is the same group that thinks Spanish is the indigenous language of Mexico and South America. Like, you want to talk about an empire? You think French is the natural language of half of Africa? You want to talk about empire? The fuck out of here. And when it comes to Russia, like, we're not even talking about shit people did before the phone was invented. We're not talking about shit where you didn't know where your people were going to have to burn the land you were on and move to the next patch forever in human existence. We're talking about now. And the Russians are like, starting today, we're going to own the earth. And we're not, and everywhere is Ruskimir. Like, that's the purpose. And they talk about it on that fucking Solovyev and Simonyan on their fucking TV show, and him on his dipshitty Russian Hannity show are active. They're state media, so they talk to the Kremlin and they get their messages. As much as Republicans bitch at, MS Now, and as much as Republicans, or as Democrats bitch about Fox News being state media, they actually are state media, and they're like, yeah, let's nuke Berlin, and it's basically our land anyways. Like, it's just fucking, it's like they're barking Mein Kampf in Russian.
We talk about it on this week's show. Luke was out on the east. Luke was out on the eastern front lines. He spoke to a soldier who was out there, who said to him, "My family's home is about 30 miles east of here. I am fighting to get back, so I can see my mother and my father." That's not abstract.
No,
that's empire.
That's right,
and that's real.
And there,
that's imperialism.
Like, for fuck's sake, if Hannity went on TV every fucking night during like Iraq and Afghanistan, he was definitely more jingoistic than almost anybody about this. Him and Tucker and all those fuckers. But if any of them said, we're going to make Iraq the 51st state.
Right.
If they said that, with all their bullshit, if they'd have said, we need American flags, that needs to be our land, or whatever, everybody in the United States, every Fox viewer would go, whoa, hang on there, spinach chin. Shut the fuck up. They would have treated it the same way with Trump saying Canada is going to be the 51st state. Like, eat shit. No way. The whole American... So the idea that America wants empire, the population absolutely fucking does not. No. Meanwhile, the Russian fucking Hannity is on every night going, everywhere we step is ours. And you live in Russia, you just don't know it yet. And on top of that, they are a proud anti-gay, anti-women. They just legalized domestic violence in the courts. Legalized domestic violence. Like white, allegedly Christian ethno-state. They're everything.
I
think of the worst of MAGA being. They're the worst of MAGA as a fuck
probably
with
what
nukes.
attracts MAGA to them.
It's exactly what it does.
No,
like
if I've said it one time, I'll say it a million times. Americans hate empire, especially when they get involved in it.
Right.
You know, Russians, in contrast, Russians frickin' love it and actually find it central to their identity.
Yes.
So, you know,
it is part of their national identity. It is specific to that. Like, can you imagine if every night, you know, like fucking Rachel Maddow signed off with a and this is, you know, this is the American world, where, you know, everyone's in the American world. Like, can you just think about those words coming out of her fucking mouth, or anybody on MSNBC during the Biden administration? If Biden was running things like they're saying he's an empirical fucking mastermind and a doddering old fart and controlling the media at the same time, and apparently drinking baby juice keeps you fucking alive forever, but everybody's, again, aging like a head of lettuce on a dashboard. And imagine if they said that. If fucking, I don't know, Jesse fucking Waters couldn't get away with it on Fox News. The people on Newsmax couldn't bring themselves to say it. Imagine that. This is the American world. Everybody deals with it like you know, and every place we invade is America. What the fuck are you talking about? And then put violence behind it. Imagine if they said that, and then the guy they supported is invading fucking like Trump in Venezuela. There are people, and this would be the one variance of it, that they don't want Venezuela to be American territory, but they think we should have control of everything that comes in and out of that country. You know, using
so
the narco
protectorate, like we had in the Philippines. You know?
Yes, right. And they want it fucking embargoed and all this stuff. And I think most of the folks in my chat, with the exception of the occasional maggot troll, would say, fuck that noise. That's ridiculous. That's not how you make your country better. Yeah, why? Exactly. But Russia doesn't need a why. There's dozens of countries that are in that circumstance with Russia, specifically because of Wagner troops or direct Russian troops in those countries. And the only reason they pulled back, the only reason they've started to lose those areas is because they're losing in Ukraine. Because their mouth wrote checks their ass couldn't cash. And that, we have a responsibility. If you hate empire, you have a responsibility to make sure your country doesn't do that shit. Namely, don't vote in people like Donald Trump who will send fucking warships to Venezuela. But you also have a responsibility to push back against big powers that try to do it to other people. Yeah. Like, I dare anybody to like, even the Canada 51st state shit. The only reason they're saying that is because they view it kind of as that already. We share a lot of society. Canadian music and culture and whatnot isn't that different. They don't consider Quebec part of it. It's not like they speak a fucking foreign language, so French isn't a factor or whatever. But they're not talking about South America.
Visit Vancouver.
Right, yes. They're not talking about South American fucking countries because they're too full of fucking brown people that speak Spanish. They don't want to be in those places. Look at fucking Tucker Carlson when they start having their big tent conversation about, like, look how many blacks and Hispanics voted for Trump. And that wiped the smile right off his fucking face. Like, oh, great, now I have to play nice with those people to get elected? Fuck that. Other than that, I have no opinion. We're way over time, and I want to remind everybody, On the Edge is Phil's show. Please subscribe.
Yep.
Luke Beasley is his
good
guest.
One this week.
Luke's a good dude. I've never met him, but he seems, to be
we'll try
a
and
sweetheart. Yep. That'd be lovely. And he seems like good people. I don't know if I could live with having like 4 people in my fucking house to do my show every day like he does. Like, they just gather in there and chit chat. Like, Rogan at least does him from like a barn, his place from like a barn on the property or some shit like that. He sequesters Jamie out to some sort of facility on the property. But God bless him for doing it.
You know me. I'm a big old slut. If I can appropriate an audience, I will.
I couldn't be more proud. And that's what I was trying to tell Tara Devlin, is that if the good people learned to be as pushy as the bad people, we might be in a better spot. And this is where I'm saying Democrats need to crow about the things that we create and are proud of when they happen, so that we don't make our biggest noise when they're being dismantled because people thought they didn't give a shit. I had no idea anybody was using this or anybody cared. We need to, we have beyond need, we have a responsibility to shine a light on and be proud of the programs and systems and established norms that we have created over the decades.
Unabashed.
Yeah, and
I'm unabashed about it.
Yes,
I don't give a shit.
That's right.
If it helps the cause of Ukraine, I will whore myself out too.
There you go.
Or I will stick my foot in the door and
Yes.
force my way in, no matter what.
Because it matters.
I will do it without regret or without shame, because it matters.
That's right.
So yeah, if I can grab a guy as lovely as Luke is, with a 1.4 million subscription channel.
Yeah.
You're damn straight. I'm going to be like, get me on your show. I want to be on your show.
Well, and also I would like to say,
I'm not ashamed.
I'm very happy to be the bottom rung on your ladder. So keep climbing, my brother.
No.
Keep getting that out there.
All of us together.
Yeah, I get that. But I'm very excited to be the step stool for anybody else who's getting these messages out, because that's the important part. Believe me, when all this is said and done, and Trump has passed like a fart in an elevator, and we all move on back to life, I got tons of shit I can do to entertain and help people and that kind of stuff. It's been a gift that I've been able to carry what I do.
I never want to see another war in my life.
That's right. I want my production company to fund and finance the Phil's retirement travel show, Strange Voices, Foods and Faces tour of you, where you go to all the peaceful places on earth and just break bread with people. Would be a joy in my life if I could just finance that for the rest of existence. So until that day, my friends, keep fighting the good fight, and we're all very proud of you.
Always will. I know you will too.
Yep. All right.
All right. We'll talk on Saturday.
Yes, we will.
All right, guys.
Thanks, man. Okay.
Right, take care, everyone.
Absolutely.
Tune in on Sunday.
That's right. Tune in Sunday. Thanks so much.